Right. All right. So, what do you think a modern day person, though, who reads the Gnostic Gospels, if they're not reading both Old and New Testament, can prove? Nothing, nothing. Because they're not reading all three. All three. Now, the Gnostics present what they're teaching as secret knowledge, right? Which means the disciples could have known it but didn't talk about it openly. Right? Even Jesus said there are things that are secret that shall be revealed, right? And also, there's nothing secret that shall not be revealed, right? If you're trying to hide something, too, right? That's the point, too, right? Now, the Bible, both in Isaiah and the New Testament, talks of seven seals, right? Seven secrets. That when men read these passages in the Bible, and there are at least seven, I guess, right? And whether you can count them out one by one, right? Or not, right? If there's at least seven, they could be silly, right? Let's say for one, you're not to make graven images in the likeness of male or female. That means something if the male and female are one in Christ Jesus, as Paul said in Galatians. Why? Because neither he nor Adam had father or mother, right? Both he and Adam were formed either asexually without the means of a mother and father, right? As an adult or as a child in Mary's womb as an embryo, right? The difference is if you're formed as an embryo, you can go the 9 months in the mother's womb and be born of her as well. You're a surrogate then, right? To the Christ child, right? Which is how a virgin can conceive without the aid of a what? Man. Which is Isaiah 7:14, right? Now, the thing is, though, that child is not like you and I after the fall, but like Adam before the fall, right? Before the woman was taken out of him, by the way. Right. Now, after the woman was taken out of him, they were with each other first, but then the tree of the knowledge of good and evil gave them the knowledge of good and evil through an act that he did with them. Now, if you think that act was eating of a fruit tree, I doubt it. But if you think he got them to eat of the fruit of his body, right, to produce children with him, you might be along the right track. Now, if you eat a piece of fruit, I don't think God would just kick you out of Eden. But if you have sex with the enemy of all mankind, you might get kicked out of Eden, huh? Right? You weren't supposed to have sex with him, right? But did anyway. That would be the real sin, and it would kick you out of Eden. And God would have to leave Eden and remove the tree of life from you, which was really the person we call Jesus today. Yet John in Revelation says Jesus was slain before the foundation of the world. Well, how can that be unless he too, with Satan, was in Eden, right? Ezekiel 28:31 says that he was in Eden, the garden of God, and all the other trees envied him, right? Well, the last time I checked, envy is a human emotion, right? How can trees envy Satan, right? Unless it represents the angels and other human beings, who envy Satan's knowledge of good and evil and that he has the power to teach us to sin, right? And do the opposite of what we're supposed to do, right? But in doing the opposite of what we're supposed to do, that's all you can do, right? So is it really a sin what he showed us, or did he make us feel like it was a sin and we condemned ourselves for it? And because he condemned himself for it, we three agreed that we did wrong and we three died, which is Adam, Eve, and Satan. Or Halo, as he's called in the Hebrew. Now, hell hath no fury like a woman scorned, but I don't scorn women unless, again, you act crazy towards me, right? Huh. So the problem isn't just, again, right, who am I with? Why am I lying? But why are we being lied to? Right? If men are sealing something, then they're thinking that what is said there is something hard to understand or doesn't quite fit what they're saying either. And to agree to it means you got to change what you believe, right? Now, if you got to change what you got to believe, that means you're believing something wrong, right? Well, if you're not admitting you're doing something wrong, that means you're lying about it or denying it, right? Right. And if you keep denying something that is true, that means you cannot face the truth about what it's saying, right? And it makes you uncomfortable to even hear the idea, right? Therefore, you're ignoring it, hoping that's not what was meant, right? But if it is what was meant, you're then lying about it, denying it, and teaching a false doctrine in the Bible, right? Which becomes a what? Sin. You too are sinning against God still by denying what the scriptures are saying in addition to, right, what we were told already. Now, I already gave you two scriptures, two chapters even, right, where you can read a passage and get a different account of what happened in Eden, right? Ezekiel 28 and, right. Mm-hmm. So there are two seals already right there in Ezekiel, right? 28 and 31, right? The rest of Ezekiel you probably don't know either. You probably never read the book to your understanding even, right? To even understand what it means. When he talks of the will and the will, sometimes think that means alien technology, right? Or angelic technology, as we would call it from the Bible, right? Who are messengers from heaven who come here and become human beings to interact with us, right? Which makes them extraterrestrial, right? In origin. But they're also maybe from a different dimension or a different life area, right? Where the creatures there are more gaseous or kind of like a flaming sun, right? Or fiery creatures, right? Not flesh and blood like we are, right? Well, if you're a fiery creature, even though alive, you're still, if gaseous, not solid. See, only a solid creature can reproduce anyway, not an asexual one or a creature that's not solid. And, now, they might have a way to become more than one, but it's not sexual, right? But if you come here, the only way to reproduce is what? Sexually. The highest life form is considered what? The human being, right? If you become a human being, you can talk to the woman, but no snake or any other animal ever talked to anyone in Eden but Balaam's donkey, who talked to Balaam when the angel of the Lord was present to open its mouth to speak to him, right? Sounds like ventriloquism to me, right? How can an angel who can become a human being, right, speak through a donkey? Ventriloquism, right? Hello? How can a serpent speak then? Another angel was present that deceived the woman into being with him. What's his name? Halel, Satan, Lucifer. Also called morning star, right? Though, is he really the evening star, right? Which is really the same star, Venus, right? The morning star and the evening star is the same star, the planet Venus, right? You didn't know that? Try a little astronomy or something and get out the house, Christians. Uh-oh, watch a program on TV. Now, if I'm telling you the truth, okay, it's the truth, right? If I've been lied to with you, and we're all being lied to, everyone but me was telling a lie. I don't know. But I realized what the lie was when I read the Gnostic Gospels all the way through and then again read the Bible. See, they are attributed to the apostles, but as their secret teachings. So they're already lying to you if they're saying it's not apostolic in origin, right? Now, some of it might be a little bit of a critique of Peter, say, right? But is the story true of Peter? That's the question, right? Did Peter allow his daughter to appear paralytic, right? Because of a Roman soldier's interest in her? That they fell in love, both him and her, I guess, right? But Peter refused to let his daughter marry the Roman soldier, right? Do you think the Apostle Peter shows that in his everyday life? That's the question, right? Will the Apostle Peter, even if they both fell in love, allow his daughter to marry a Roman soldier? Probably not. Probably not. So is the story correct in assuming and asserting that Peter would not allow his daughter to marry the Roman soldier to the point of paralyzing her or making her look disabled to prove that the Roman would no longer be interested in her if she was disabled? Right. Same is true of any man today trying to find a girlfriend, right? Would her father sabotage the relationship, right? And try to set the suitor up with other women or other people when he's not supposed to, right? Right? If you know what I mean, right? Would he not like the suitor that the Lord chose for his daughter, right? If they both dreamed of being one of the two witnesses or not, right? That's the question. And would the pastor let the daughter and the suitor marry someone else? If he would, like Peter, he's doing the same thing, right? But the suitor doesn't know what's going on either, and is saved by grace through faith, not of works, lest any man should boast, as we all are. So is she. If she did have a dream of being one of the two witnesses, which I don't know, right? See, if I don't know whether or not my wife had a dream or not, right? Or the one I'm supposed to be with had a dream or not, I'm not going to make that a priority, right? Because I don't know that 100%. I only know I have the dream. Now, if two men and two women have the same dream, right? Wouldn't that cause a type of confusion? I don't know. If only two people have that dream, right? And nobody else does but them two, right? But, right. Say we all have the dream, or certain people have the dream, right? Or whatever's going on, I don't know, right? Or no one has the dream, and only one person had a dream dealing with the throne of God in heaven, right? Now, the Bible does point out when you run a race, all run, but only one receives the prize, right? For winning the race, right? And that goes to the fastest person who finishes the race. Yet sometimes, like the rabbit and the hare, the tortoise and the hare, right? The rabbit and the tortoise, right? If you will. The fastest animal, the rabbit, or say the cheetah or whatever, right? Doesn't always win, because the cheetah, like with the show Thundercats, right? When she had to race lion, though, right? To prove he's the true ruler of the Thundercats, right? The reason he won the race was endurance, not quickness, because Chitara's speed is for short bursts. But if you're distance running against Chitara, right, he won because he out endured her, right? Like with the tortoise and the hare. Mm-hmm. The hare was running faster than the tortoise. He got so far ahead, he said, well, I'm going to take a nap. I can't care about this guy. All right. And yet, while he's sleeping, the tortoise walked by him, completed the race, and won. Not because he's faster than the hare or the rabbit, but because the rabbit's arrogancy allowed him to neglect the fact that he already should have won the race but never crossed the finish line. If you don't cross the finish line, you can't win the race. But if you fall asleep before the finish line, and while you're sleeping, the tortoise crept up on you, creep that he is, and crosses the finish line, right, first, he won. Even though you beat him technically almost to the finish line, right? Unless you cross the finish line, you don't win the race. You're still not there yet. And if as you're sleeping, the tortoise passes you, even though he's creeping up on it slower than you, and passes you, and he does pass the finish line, you lose even though you're faster than the tortoise and we're right there at the finish line. But instead of crossing it, you fell asleep. Therefore, you did not win the race, right? Because you let him cross the finish line as he slowly crept up to you, and he won because he went on across the finish line, right? So once he did that, even though you got to the finish line quicker, because you did not cross the finish line, right? You did not endure until the end of the race, and you did not win the race, right? The tortoise did, right? Even though slower than you, right? Because your nap lasted longer, and because your speed comes at a price too, right? So you're running so fast, so much faster than the tortoise, right? So that when you get to the end of the finish line, you're real tired. You take your nap and you fall asleep. Right? Well, you sleep longer than you thought you were going to sleep. And when you wake up again, the tortoise then crossed the finish line and you lost to him embarrassingly. Because you took it for granted. You did well until you got to the finish line, right? But not realizing how much energy you put into getting to the finish line, you got tired, right? So, I got this, no hands, no questions asked. You fall asleep. Well, you never crossed the finish line. Meanwhile, you exerted yourself to the point of you're not just in a mild nap, you're in like an REM and 4 to 8 hour sleep, right? Which you hope would only be maybe an hour nap. But it turned into a 4-hour fucking nap. So much so that as Mr. Turtle's coming up, he's catching up to you. But he's also going at his pace, right? Where by the time he's up to you, it's been 4 hours later, but you're still asleep. So he crosses the finish line still before you, because while you're sleeping, he's going slowly. Meaning he's not making a lot of ruckus either, right? So when he crosses you, goes by you, right? You don't even hear him. You're sound asleep, right? Just like if your stepdaughter wakes you up in the middle of the night, you're trying to be sound asleep. You also are groggy and not sure why she's in there with you, and you're not going to try to do too much with the child to aggravate any situation you may or may not be in with your ex-wife anyway if you're on the guts. Right there, too. So there you are. You're the tortoise crossing the finish line slowly, walking softly, not being burdensome or a showboat, right? To where, as the rabbit is sleeping on the sideline, you beat him to the finish line, right? Because he exerted so much energy to beat you that when he got to the finish line, he thought he could take a nap where he overslept, right? As he overslept, you cross the finish line and win the race, right? Due to his arrogancy. That he's the fastest animal, that he can run circles around you in the end, right? But he also tired himself out to the point where when he did fall asleep, he slept longer than he intended, which gave you the chance to catch up to him, overtake him, and win. That's what happened there. And then you're pretending you can't understand me because I'm coming to you too 2,000 years later. I'm also having to explain what the seven seals are, and unlike your former pastors, I'm being worthy to do it. And the simple fact is, they're not being worthy to do it. And the way I'm worthy to do it is I'm not judging you as Jesus said not to, right? I'm not trying to condemn you to death with Satan or hell, who is asleep too, right? But slept because he did not like how God made the earth, right? And he has a problem with its design of the creatures here on the planet, right? He thinks by being physical, the freedom to do each other wrong is so powerful that we would sooner do each other wrong than right. So he wants to punish you for doing what he says is evil, with the ultimate punishment, destruction of your outer shell. And cause it to die by letting the spirit, or making the spirit leave the body to die from drowning first, jumping from a high height second, or eating something that's not, say, healthy for you, or good for you, or again, that would harm you if you ate it, right? Thus making you confused, right, about what that is you really did wrong with him, which is the opposite of what you were shown you can do the day before, which is sex with your female to produce offspring, right, until the fall itself, right? So from day 6 till the time the woman was taken out of him and they married, they both had sex and could morph into the same body until they sinned with Satan in the 70th year of day 7, right? That's another scripture they seal. Within 70 years, because Adam lived 930 years, and a day is as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years as a day to the Lord, or somewhere in that area, right? So if 1,000 years is subtracted from 930, you get 70, right? So in the 70th year of the 7th day, Adam and Eve fell. That is discerned through what? Believing what the scriptures say that 1,000 years or so is at least one day to the Lord, or even 24 segments of an hour, possibly too, right? To where at least there's 24,000 hours in a day to the Lord, to the Lord. Now, if it's been already 6 days, right, since the 70th year that we fell with Satan, right, or 6,000 years roughly, right, so give another 200 years or so, right, that day is being shortened till now by 200 years, or almost a quarter of a year, of a day, or an hour, whatever it is. So we got 24 hours in a day. We got 6 days already. Right? John mentions 10 days of tribulation, which is 10,000 years at least. Right? So that has to go another 4,000 years to be 10, right? Though we still have another 200 years till the 6th day is over, right? It's not over yet. That will leave 4 more thousand years till Christ might return. I don't know. See, no man knows the day of the hour of his return. And if, like with the tortoise and the hare, you're not quite at the finish line, but you fall asleep before you finish the finish line. Meaning you're taking yourself out the race somehow. By doing something arrogantly, like falling asleep before you reach the finish line. Even though the turtle is slower than you, even though, again, some people aren't getting the whole message because you're kind of a stumbling block to them to begin with, which is what the problem is, I know. You're being an offense to them by making them easily offended at things that have nothing to do with God, like music or a song or a word or something like that. You don't want to understand, right? Or you make it a mortal sin to say it when there are sins not unto death, right? And there is a sin not unto death in Moses' law, and it's masturbation or sex with a woman. Now, any other sex with a man or with another person, right, is considered adulterous, right? And those sins are punished with death, right? By the God of this world, right? Which is Satan. The God who is to come, was and is to come, keeps coming back, but we keep missing him. And he keeps having to replenish the earth, but we keep falling for the same sin, right? With Satan and Eden, right? So that we're creating a loop in time, right? Where we go to maybe 10,000 years after the fall, or 10 days, or 10 hours, I'm not sure which of that day, right? If it's a 24-hour day like we have here, a half a day could be 500 years to 1,000 years for a full day, right? And then you quarter it up or whatever to make it less or more. I know. So 2,500 years is a quarter of an hour, or a quarter of that day, right? In the Lord. Because to the gaseous creatures, a day could be as 1,000 years, right? Or 2,500 years. We don't know, right? But we're still here.